I always tell people that I need basically 2 out of 3 of these. I want to be learning, I want to be growing, or I want to be making a lot of money.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get to B School. This is your host, Drex, and I'm so grateful that you're here with us listening to the best MBA podcast in the world. Thank you for taking that time. I got to apologize. Last week, I dropped the ball. I did not get the Monday episode out, and I apologize. That was not in the plans. I had the Chicago Marathon come up, some family stuff, work. It seemed like the perfect storm, and I'm sorry. Hopefully, this was a rubber ball that I could have dropped, and we're going to keep going back to every Monday, getting something out, because these conversations, they're just great. We need to keep them coming. So I'm surprised that we're getting one out this week, honestly. I just couldn't let it go 2 weeks without, but today is a big day in the Tanner household. My oldest son, Jack, turned 5 today, and it's crazy to me. It has been just such a fun weekend. My wife threw a space-themed birthday party for him and all the other little 5-year-olds in the neighborhood yesterday. You should have seen them running around with their little jetpacks and eating space cake. It was amazing. I kind of wanted to be a 5-year-old yesterday. Besides all that, back to the plot. This episode is fantastic. Sam Olmsted is coming to us from Kellogg. He and I are doing the evening program together. We haven't really chatted much. We were just in the same classes. He was making some good comments, and then we were connected through this podcast, and I'm so grateful that he's on. He shares a lot of great insight into the evening program juggle. More broadly, though, he shares a lot about his work and the strong emphasis that he puts on workplace culture, the usual business. If you know anyone who should be on the show, or if you should be on the show, please reach out. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please consider leaving a 5-star review. And also check out, if you're on TikTok, check out Sam Olmsted's Kellogg dishes. It's kind of fun. He teased it a little bit with me in this discussion. So go to TikTok, check him out, and throw him a bone. And then, of course, besides all that, the most important thing, I hope you're doing well. Please reach out if we can do anything to help. And now let's get to the good part with Sam Olmsted. Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
We're at Kellogg together, and yet this is our first conversation. We've not done a good enough job at interacting in between classes, so I'm glad that this is happening. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit to the listeners?
Sure. My name is Sam Olmsted. I joined the Kellogg community in January, and I moved up to Chicago in March with my girlfriend and our 4 pets. We live in Wicker Park. I'm a marketing manager at a company called Green Office Partner. This week just won Crain's Chicago Business Best Places to Work for the 3rd year in a row.
Awesome.
Which is super exciting. Makes marketing a little bit easier when you start winning awards. And before that, I lived in New Orleans for the last 15 years. For 8 of those years, I worked at a marketing agency. And for the 4 years before I moved, I was the managing director at that agency. So really cutting my teeth in small businesses, marketing, management, advertising, business development, sales, all of that stuff.
Awesome. March is a heck of a time to move to Chicago.
Well, here's the deal. I got to Chicago in October, and I was, starting in January, and I said to myself, I cannot move my girlfriend from New Orleans to Chicago in January. She would leave me. So I had to strategically take 1 class virtually and then move up in March. And what I said is every day it will get warmer. And I think very soon it will start getting colder forever. So that's the only thing on our minds.
Identical sentiment over here. When it was April and we were still wearing our coats, we're like, okay, this is,
okay, when's this gonna turn over? Let's keep it going. Yeah.
So the small bit of conversation with you has been so much geared towards your fulfilling work and marketing, and yet this is an MBA discussion. So talk me through kind of when the MBA idea sprouted in your mind. Was it always the plan? When did you think about it?
It was not the plan. Okay. So I went to undergrad at Tulane University in New Orleans. I grew up in Washington, D.C. So I moved there. And when I graduated, I really fell in love with the city. I graduated in 2013, and I was there during a really resurrection period of New Orleans. I got there in 2009. Hurricane Katrina was in 2005. So every year that I was there was a really strong push towards entrepreneurship, a strong push towards investing in the city itself, both financially and with people power to stay, to join companies, to grow companies, to build companies. I got got swept up in that. I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
worked in marketing right after college and then joined a small business and stayed there for a long time. I hadn't initially thought about getting my MBA because, to be totally honest with you, for the past few years, I had been in a lot of leadership programs, joined different boards of organizations, done a lot of volunteering, and kind of immersed myself in every single group imaginable in New Orleans.
Awesome.
The thing is, New Orleans is a really small market. It's a small city. There's not a lot of big businesses there. And so what really was the driving factor for me was realizing that if I wanted to expand my career and keep growing in a really hockey stick kind of growth, meaningful way, I would likely need to branch out into a new city, a new network, a new group of people.
Okay.
And so that's what I wanted to do. So I started looking at MBA programs. I thought it would be a really logical next step to, as I'm expanding my network, as I'm looking for bigger opportunities, to get an MBA and use that as a launching pad to continue on with my career. And I don't want to sound like I'm, dissing New Orleans, because
No, not at all.
New Orleans
Not
is
at
a
all.
great place. It's just I call it a big, small town.
I don't think anyone listening to you could detect any kind of negative emotion. It's obvious that you love New Orleans. I think that's really great to hear that. So you're thinking about an MBA. Why did you land A, on Kellogg, and why did you land B, on an evening program?
That's a great question. I got in touch with an MBA coach through a friend of mine who had hired that coach and got into Columbia. His brother hired the same coach and got into UCLA. And I saw this as a pathway. I really strongly recommend working with a coach. I think that
Agreed.
if you're about to invest tons of money and tons of time and energy into a program, it's worth it to have that initial upfront investment of working with someone to get into the best possible program that fits your needs and matches what you're hoping to achieve. I worked with a
Agreed.
coach. He strongly recommended an evening weekend program because, first of all, I wanted to keep working. I wanted to keep making money while I was in school. And second of all, just because I'd be working with other people similar to my age group, similar to my life stage in terms of where they are in their careers, what they had previously done, how much experience they had under their belt. So it seemed like a better fit to go into an evening program where I could be with peers who were really at similar stages of what they're hoping to achieve.
Okay, great. And so you've been here for, almost a year. Have you enjoyed the evening program? Do you wish that you were in a full-time program?
I enjoyed a lot. I would say my biggest, not downside, but my biggest thing that I'm hoping to work on is finding time and carving out time, creating that time to be more social with people. To be totally honest with you, class goes from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's Tuesday night. I just want to go home. I just want to sleep. People have been really nice inviting me out after class to get drinks, to hang out. But man, I got work the next day. I got to commute.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest downside is just you need to create that time where the full-time people, by definition of their program, they have that. And so that's the thing that I'm trying to work on in this next kind of half of the program, is to be really conscious about making that time and be super open to when someone invites you to a party, when someone invites you to an event, just saying yes and finding a way to make it work.
It is hard. And I feel that same emotion. There was this really great classmate, Casey. She's probably not listening because I might have offended her, but she invited me to pickleball.
Shout out to Casey.
Casey.
No.
She was so nice and invited me to pickleball 4 times. And it's shoot, sorry. And you have to be very selective of what things you can go to. And I got 3 kids and a wife at home, and it's pickleball just doesn't fit on a weeknight anymore.
I can't even imagine that. That's so much more responsibility than I have.
No,
and
not true.
I'm not making it work, and I think that it's not only being selective about what you make time for, but it's also just allowing yourself the grace to realize that it's okay to not make time for things as well, and to not feel too burdened by needing to please everyone so quickly in a place where there's constantly something going on. You look at Slack, on the Kellogg Slack, it's an influx of events, activities. I almost need a personal assistant to just tell me what to do. The one good thing really is that everyone's pretty much in the same boat in terms of it's already late. I'm a working professional. Everyone knows that it's hard to find time. And so I think that people aren't too hard on each other. So it's okay for Casey. Sure.
I think that's a great caveat to point out to listeners too. It's okay, if you are considering the evening program, you are going into it with a lot of like-minded people. You have a lot of differences, but there's just that base level understanding that time it's the thing we have the least of right now. Okay, I want to pivot and ask you, you're several months into this thing. brass tacks question for the listeners. How long are you going to take to get your MBA?
2.5 years. I mean, I think I'm going to go with the relatively standard approach to it. Although I will say, talking to people this summer, they said, I am not taking classes next summer. I need to enjoy the summer and take some time to myself, because I mean, Chicago is so beautiful in the summer that people really want to take advantage of what it has to offer. And, if next summer rolls around and I'm not feeling it, I think I could see myself, taking fewer classes or kind of scaling back and then kind of ramping back up again. But I do plan to take, 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay. So 2.5 years, that's mostly 2 credits, maybe 1 or 2 3-credit terms.
Yeah.
That's kind of that timeline, right? What have been your favorite classes that you've taken so far?
Well, you and I were in a strategy class together, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I really liked that class because of the constant cases that we read. Basically, every week there was a real world example from, United to Boeing to, anything in between of something that we can actually tangibly look at in the real world and say, okay, how do I apply business principles to this case study? But I will say one class that surprised me was Moore's Leadership and Organizations.
Loved Moore's.
Right now, because I'm new to my job, I started in June as the first marketing manager of an Inc. 5000 company with over 40 employees. They never had a marketing manager before. And when you learn about how to be more persuasive in groups, how to leverage your opinions in a way that can enact change, I think that's super important. And I'll give you one quick example because we're on a podcast and podcasts love examples. That is that, I got into the company and I really am trying to nudge people to update the website. And so I actually use that initiative in one of my essays in Moore's to talk about how I plan to drive change within the company to update the website. And I knew it needed to be done, but I never actually wrote it down of what my plan was, how I'm going to do this, how I'll approach it. And once I wrote it down for class, I felt so much more confident in my ability to talk to senior leadership at the company and actually get it over the finish line.
You're talking about something that I wanted to segue into. So this is perfect. You talk about kind of the benefit of you really do get to implement what you're working on in class or vice versa, because the whole pitch of the evening program is you get to use what you're learning directly the next day in work. That is sometimes true. And to be frank, sometimes it's not. Like I did not use my operations formulas the next day in my finance work. But it sounds like you're already experiencing some benefit of working and classwork at the same time. I guess what I'm trying to ask is the time that you're spending in class worth it?
That's a good question, because that's really what everyone who's potentially thinking about getting an MBA is on their mind all the time. Is it worth it? Will I get anything out of this? I think yes. My totally transparent, honest opinion is that Kellogg has a lot of core classes, and those core classes may not align with your business objectives. And I think that a lot of people may find a class, say Dex 2, statistics, and say, I don't understand why this class matters for me. I'm a marketing guy. I'm not a numbers guy, whatever that may be. But I would say some of the core classes like Moore's may really strike a chord with what you're doing. I would suggest that people take some perspective and think about how those core classes may actually impact them later on as they grow their career or as their needs change within their existing career. Because, there may be a time when something pops up and you can refer back to it, or you'll have some base knowledge of that topic and you can kind of speak intelligently about it.
I think that's very just kind of appropriate mindset to have around this evening program.
And that may shift with what your needs are. To be totally honest with you, when I moved to Chicago, I put in 4 weeks notice at my agency, worked, out some kinks in terms of, finalizing some deals over there. And then I went to ChatGPT and I said, what are the best places to work in Chicago? Green Office Partner, the company that I'm currently at, popped up. They had won Crane's Chicago Business Best Places to Work the previous 2 years. And I cold messaged on LinkedIn the CEO, who also went to Northwestern. And he was traveling in Southeast Asia at the time. He put me in touch with the COO. I interviewed with him, chatted with him, and then had 3 interviews and sent over a portfolio, and I got the job.
Yeah.
Like, that is how people should be approaching where they want to work, is what is the best place to work? Not necessarily, where am I going to get the most money or what's going to be the best growth at the time.
I have to double click on a couple of things here. First, let's talk about this order of operations. So am I understanding this correctly, that you get into Kellogg, you give your 4 weeks, then you go look for another job, and then you move to Chicago?
No. I got into Kellogg. I moved in March, already enrolled in Kellogg. And the day I moved, I said, I cannot work at my old job anymore. It doesn't make sense. I was the New Orleans guy. I got to put in my notice. So I put in my notice, and then I gave myself basically 2 months. I wanted to give myself 2 months to look for a new job. And the first thing I did was ChatGPT. I wanted to see what the best place to work was for a number of reasons. And I wanted to find a place where people really enjoyed, their surroundings. And so that's where I landed.
I am far too risk averse to recommend that kind of operations to anybody. So, but kudos to you.
It was a bit of a leap. And also, my girlfriend moved with me, and she had to get a job as well. She got a job before I did, before we even moved, honestly. She's a nurse. So she's a nurse educator as well as a labor and delivery nurse. And so we both got jobs, and we can feed our animals and and pay our rent.
Give me just a second here. My wire came out.
Pause. I'm gonna bring up my dog because he's my number one fan. Dogs always do well. This is Tom.
That's great. How many is that your only pet there?
We've got 2 dogs and 2 cats, and we've got a Chihuahua, brown dog, and a 3-legged cat and a cloned cat. It's crazy. If you come over here, you're gonna get barked at. You're gonna get licked.
By a unique animal. That's okay. Yeah. With the last few minutes that we have, you've talked a few times about workplace culture, and I wanted to ask you, how are you personally improving the workplace culture? What's your role as Sam?
That's a great question. In terms of how I come into a new company, I think the first thing you need to do is just listen. Listen to how the company operates. Listen to what voices are loudest, and also listen to who has opinions that don't voice their opinions. So get an understanding of who the people are that are making the decisions, whether or not those decisions are the right ones for the company or the right ones for their different departments. Take people to lunch, talk to people one-on-one, figure out how things are operating before you start trying to change the culture. You really need to understand it and dive into it. I think that, as the first marketing manager at this company, the big thing that people want to do is they want to show off their company. They want to have videos, graphics, media, articles, to show off all the cool stuff that we do, show off the clients we work with. So what I've done is I've become an in-house resource for people to create content, to create a stronger brand, and create that pride that people feel for the company itself, so they can share it on LinkedIn, so they can talk to their clients about it. I'm hosting an event in 2 weeks at a Cubs game. We're doing the Wrigley rooftops. So we invited, 20 clients and going out, and I'm starting an event series every few months. We're going to have an event inviting CTOs, CFOs, CEOs, people that are directors of IT, because I want to build a culture that encourages people to invite new friends, new prospects, new clients to something fun, to get people involved. So I think in terms of building culture, it's really about getting people on board with doing fun, exciting things to show off what we already do, which is deliver, outstanding office technology for our clients.
Okay. I love the emphasis on fun, but I really like what you said earlier about, listening first, but I love that you said, listen to those who don't necessarily voice what they're feeling. I like that you seek those people out. There is enough time for me to abuse your kindness and ask you one more question. Advice. Leave the listeners with a piece of advice.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I'm still struggling with myself is to talk to yourself. Really think about what you want on a regular basis and check in with yourself to see if you're still on the path to get that. Before I got this job, I worked with one of the career coaches at Kellogg, who encouraged me to do a career leader survey exercise to show what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you're interested in. And it's something that is a snapshot of, a moment in time of how you're feeling about what you're good at and what you like. And it doesn't mean that's what you want forever, but it's an exercise that allows you to really think about what type of career you want and what type of, work you want to do on a day-to-day basis for the long term. So, speak to yourself in not a woo-woo way, but in a way that allows you to think about what it is that you want to
do. That's something I need to do more. And I think that comes with, finding those quiet moments. I'm glad I asked. That's a piece of advice I was not expecting to hear, but I, kind of advice for me personally. That's great.
It's hard, and I'm still working on it. And that's my point too. Is like, you go to Kellogg to get an MBA, to amplify your career, to start a new business, but those reasons may change, and you need to ask yourself if those are still the same reasons that you started.
Yeah, I do love that. Sam, this has been really fun. I'm glad. I'm so grateful that you would take this time. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Drexler. Thank you so much.
Yeah. What are you taking?
Oh man, I forgot. I'm taking like PACT.
Oh,
I think I'm taking finance. I might be taking that next quarter. I need to double check. Sorry,
Yeah.
I asked.
I actually love that that's your response because my wife would be like, "What class are you taking?" I'm like, "I don't know. I
Like I signed up and then